One. Yes, we're like.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session on youth-driven financial reform and sustainable development, accelerating equitable finance and entrepreneurship. We're excited to have you all joining us as we explore how young leaders can shape financial systems to promote sustainability, equity, and entrepreneurship. Over the next 30 minutes, our distinguished panelists will discuss the role of youth in driving financial reform to create more inclusive systems that serve marginalized communities and foster entrepreneurship growth. After the panel discussion, we will open the floor for a 15-minute Q&A session. So please prepare your questions for the panelists. We will be waiting for the panelists that will be late. However, to begin, I wanted to provide a brief introduction mentioning that nowadays the call for reforming the international financial architecture has gained unprecedented momentum, driven by the urgent need to make financing more inclusive and responsive to modern challenges. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has emphasized that the current financial system, largely shaped by institutions created in the mid 20th century, is failing to address the needs of the developing world. He called for a wholesale reform, arguing that many countries, particularly in the global south, are trapped under unsustainable debt burden, limiting their ability to invest uh, in critical sectors like health, education, and climate action. The Secretary General includes increasing liquidity among their proposals for developing countries, restructuring debt, and reforming governance within key financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Discussions from the Summit of the Future emphasize the need to overhaul how countries access capital, especially through instruments such as thematic bonds, debt swaps, and concessional lending. Our experts probably know better about those instruments to make financing for the Sustainable Development Goals more accessible. Today, in this panel, we will focus on how young leaders can drive these crucial reforms by reshaping the financial uh, architecture. Youth have the potential to create a more equitable and sustainable financial system, empowering vulnerable communities and fostering entrepreneurship. Let me briefly introduce the panelists before addressing the questions we prepared. On my right, we have Yu Xuan Ye.
Yuxuan. Yeah.
Yuxuan. Yuxuan is an experienced climate professional with an advocacy and ESG consulting background. She built a climate advocacy program in Taiwan from scratch, successfully amended national climate laws, and incorporated climate change into Taiwan's National Human Rights Action Plan. She has extensive experience in climate finance, especially in project finance, climate-related financial risk assessment, and the public funds from fossil fuels. Given your experience in public administration and environmental justice, let me begin with this question. How can social justice be integrated into financial reforms to create fairer economic opportunities? What is the role that public policy and advocacy plays in embedding equity within financial systems?
Okay. So thank you, and thanks all the audience here and online. So I'm Yuxuan. So I think the question has been asked again and again in the past week of New York Climate Week, right? How can we accelerate the desperate needed funding to be invested in especially the global south, because most of the climate finance actually unfortunately only stick to the global north because those financial institutions want guaranteed returns, and they want to have low risk investment. So we hear again and again, like, we have to make investment in global south investable or bankable. But like, why is this problem happening now? It's because actually there are the risk assessment is there's a big problem with the risk assessment. So those financial institutions view investment in the developing country as high risk because of climate risk, because of political risk, and also other currency risk, and all adding up to a high rate of borrowing money. So the capital cost has stopped them from like investing more into the developing country. But are these risks all real risk, or like a lot of them are actually perception from those financial institutions? And I think the answer is yes. Actually, some of them are not the real risk, but they are being distorted by the system because they view the developing country as risky at the very beginning. So I think a very important reform in this system is to make the information clear, transparent, and available to all people. And how that can happen, I think youth can play a role in this. In my previous job as a campaigner in Taiwan, we document the frontline community in Taiwan. Like, just like all countries in the world, like all the emitters are those big companies, but all the people at the front lines are farmers, are indigenous people, are women, are the poor. So how can we transform their stories and bring this story to the decision makers to let them know that actually, if you keep the financial system like this, these people will suffer, even though they did not really emit any carbon dioxide compared to those big corporations in your country. So I think how to make these information available is super important to let them know what's really on the ground, especially like, for example, a lot of the African country, they are having really fast economic growing, but still they have problems with capital asset. They cannot access the capital, which is really unreasonable. So how to make this situation on the ground known to this investor, and at the same time we have to make this story into like really compelling and structural demanding to the government to ask them how we can reform this system. So I think a lot of people here must know Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley. So she has been working on this Bridgetown initiative to reform the whole financial system. And I think her representation as the front line, because she's from Barbados and a Caribbean country that's suffering from huge impact from climate change. So I think her role is really important, that how we can bring this story and into the system to make things happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much. In summary, what we lack is instruments that may allow the voices from marginalized communities to be heard at international policy making in order to continue restructuring the financial system. Because if we talk about human rights, sustainable development, that is a need as well, but we are focusing here on the financial architecture.
Yes.
Okay. We'll continue this debating about it. On my left, I have Evie Chen. Her title is the founder of EVT and the strategic leader in venture strategy and consumer behavior. Evie is an operator specializing in consumer and market innovation. Her entrepreneurial journey began in college when she identified a gap in the iced tea market and pioneered to the North America's cold brew tea segment. Over the next decade, Evie grew EVT from a farmer's market stand to a national brand distributing in over 2,000 outlets, partnering with government, private banking, and media leaders to improve funding access for small businesses, helping to shape innovative capital solutions. The question that I prepared for today is, as an entrepreneur and venture strategist, what innovative financial mechanisms, such as microfinance, digital finance platforms, if we want to focus on education as well, platforms where we can download resources, materials for our own improvement or directed to many stakeholders. What have you seen is expanding opportunities for youth and marginalized groups? How can these tools be scaled for greater impact?
Well, thank you for the introduction. Pleasure to be here. It's a big topic, right? Like none of us has the obvious answer to those very, very big topic. But from my own personal experience, this is what I would say. I think the way that we think about entrepreneurship has to start evolving. Because when we talk about entrepreneurs, we're thinking about somebody on TV, very glamorous, right? Going public and raising, $15 million. But at the same time, how many of those companies are actually running sustainably? Under the cover, are they profitable? Are their employees happy? Are they doing good for society, right? So frankly, to me, the key is to let's start making small businesses work. That to me is the key, because even though when I started, I had no money at all, but what I thought I had was my story. Going back to the story point, we all have our own families, have our own ancestors, and they've passed down their skills, their discipline of choosing education, of choosing paying attention to things that matter to them. That's why we can be here. So being an entrepreneur, starting from nothing, I did not know at the time how difficult it would be for me to access financing. It just was not anything that I thought of or even considered would be a real blocker, but it took a lot of time to find the right people to listen to find the right people that are willing to talk to me, and let alone actual financial institutions that were willing to give me the time. So that particular curiosity took me to MIT Sloan after I was an entrepreneur. And what I realized there was we gotta figure out a way to rework consumerism a little bit. Because before we ask for money, we gotta know how to make money. We're gonna know how to support ourselves. As somebody from a background that if I fail, it's not just money capital, it's just capital of time. It's a capital of support. Do I have friends and family around me? If I fall, they will catch me. That's an important one. If you take time off from your full-time job to pursue an idea, with a scale, it's okay if it doesn't scale, but it has to be self-supporting. So looking at small businesses a different way, and therefore start asking what other forms of capital can we support? What kind of investment vehicles we already have within public and within private? Can we just pull the resources together and make it work somehow? MIT has a whole catalog of free courses, free, actually, right? And I wouldn't say that a lot of people know about that. It's the same material that I took in class. You have access to it. So it's about how do you tell that story? How do you get that message out there and say, hey, here are resources. So to me, it's a combination of let's figure it out, how to rewrite the narrative of what being an entrepreneur is like. Let's figure out a way to help small businesses work within their community. And let's find a way to put the resources front and center in front of them.
Let me pose a third question that may breach both commentaries, and then I'll go deeper into your participation. What are the critical reforms that we need in order to empower youth-led initiatives? How are we supporting entrepreneurs? How are we bringing testimonies from the storytelling approach to authorities, policymakers, investors as well, right, in order to convince them about our projects and so that they can support the opportunities that we put on the table, right? Because a business is that, a product, a service that may fulfill a need, right? So there are like more than one actor is interested in investing, supporting in those efforts because we are covering needs, right? Mm-hmm. So how can we ensure that these changes lead to lasting opportunities for young entrepreneurs and innovators? What are we envisioning within the financial architecture reform that may support youth-led initiatives? Who wants to go first?
Maybe okay. Thank you. So I think the essence of financial institutions is that they do care about risk a lot, right? And I think for them, like youth sounds risky, right? They don't have money, they don't have experiences. How can I know that they will success? So if I what if I lend the money to them and it just vanish? Yeah. So I think, but this society has learned a lot from trusting people with innovative ideas, right? Like all the technology we've had, and also some good solution in social impact are all born with like some try and error and some good ideas that doesn't look like really fantastic at first place. So I think we need to create an environment that can provide certain space for try and error for these ideas, but how that can be incorporated into the current system and institutions. I think in many countries they will create a system called a sandbox. So, for example, like I was in blockchain industry before, so actually there are a lot of innovation coming up, and actually people don't know what will happen. So, in many countries, the governments just create a sandbox. So they guarantee you a certain period of time that you don't have to be strictly obeying all the current financial rules, because actually the regulation on financial institutions are mostly the most strict in most countries. So they are granted a period of time for trial, but still you cannot really do something bad to the society, but still you have some spaces. And afterwards, but the financial institution, those startups also have to guarantee that what's the goal they want to reach and what they hope to come out of the sandbox after. So I think that kind of buffer zone or space are really important for youth-led entrepreneurship. Yeah, and I think the other speaker can give more insights into her experiences in this.
I love that word, buffer zone, by the way. So I'm imagining in my head like a car that's going full speed and has the runway to stop, right?
Yeah.
Runway is something we talk a lot about when we talk about startups or entrepreneurs. And frankly, it's interesting to me that talking about risk, talking about all those things, entrepreneurs are the ones who are taking the most risk.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like if we, like just say for some miracle reasons, one of the concepts work, how long would it take? Who knows? Because a lot of times it's time and it's place.
Yeah.
It's how the market is behaving rather than how hard an individual has worked on an idea, right? Finding product market fit is not as simple as have an idea, test it out, boom, now it's going to start making money. We're going to have to try a lot of different things. And that includes hiring people, finding out where this market is, how much the product sells. So there's a lot of things are going to work out. And if it doesn't work, I'll say for myself, I didn't have unemployment insurance I could go and get. I didn't have health insurance. So a lot of those sort of things do hinge somebody's ability to go out there and be freely creating and breaking that box per se, right? So you're operating within the boundaries of traditionally what worked for a more structured job. Yeah. So if there's a job title named entrepreneur and there's this, right, and there's a year of salary there, and you're being paid for this year of experimentation, I think that the mindset will be a little different versus now. If you want to start a company, if you want to start something, you got to figure it out 1,000 things all on your own. And that's just not how it works anywhere, right? So for us as groups of people, I think, because I'm pretty obsessed in consumer. So when I picked up consumer insights and consumer behavior as a field of study, it really is, you're speaking with your dollars. You're speaking with where and how you're paying attention to things. That's what consumer insights are, that we all have different context. And that is different local communities, the local marketplace, the people that connect around us, internet access, social media. We all have different contexts, and that context is worth a lot of money. Marketers would love to know all those contacts, so we can guess what you're going to purchase next. Right? Why are we spending time on social media on those content companies? because it's entertaining. But our attention spans now are shorter than ever. We actually hold shorter attention spans than goldfishes, right? So if you think about that fraction and that frequency of attention paying, how can a small company, a small business, a small individual compete against larger distractions in terms of paying attention, right? So that is, to me, the key of how do we look at who are around you, and can we start paying attention in a particular way and share information, give feedback, right?
Right. Among the many strategies in order to reduce risk in investment is information, right? When we increase access to information, then we decrease uncertainty, right? And that is the most dangerous thing for an investor, right? They want to avoid uncertainty as much as possible, because that could be dangerous, no, for the revenues and counterproductive from what they want. Although for increasing access to information, we need many things, no, internet, support from public institutions to disclose the situation, context in the country, et cetera, et cetera. So what are certain programs that may be useful to increase access to information for youth, for investors, for the many stakeholders that need to be involved in order to increase entrepreneurship opportunities mainly? And I wanted to pose an example about a program that is being carried out in Mexico, the country where I am from, to evaluate how the government is tackling disinformation in order to increase entrepreneurship opportunities, mainly directed to provide opportunities towards youth, because the program that I'm going to talk about is focused on youth. But now we have this panelist. Hi.
Hi, I'm Jagrati. I'm so sorry I got caught up in the rain.
Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jagrati Goyal. I'm from India. I'm studying here at Columbia University. I'm a graduate student in the School of International and Public Affairs. Before joining Columbia, I was working in finance and investment banking for almost 4 years. And I was working in sustainable finance, so we used to work a lot microfinance, farmer finance in these areas.
Welcome, Jagrati. Feel comfortable. In the meantime, I can pose a question that we prepared for you. Jagrati, with your background in finance and policy as a Columbia student, what do you believe are the most critical reforms needed to empower youth-led initiatives?
In my experience, I've seen that policy is a strong tool that really creates space for people to pursue their, for example, when I was working with microfinance institutions, we would see that providing these small loans to underserved communities would really uplift the livelihood of not only the women who receive the financing, but their families, and then ultimately the village as a whole. And this was only possible because of strong policies that are in place by the Indian government. So this was where I witnessed policy really fostering development. And I think that if we encourage more thoughtful and well-positioned policies, then it can really support development in all areas.
Yeah, policy is a topic that we hadn't covered yet, so thanks for bringing that up. Microcredits, small loans, and those usually are programs being implemented from the government to the ground, right? Like,
Yes.
is that a program that was suggested, proposed by a youth, or can you provide another example based on your studies? And you probably collaborate with many youth, young people in your university in order to continue pushing forward this topic, right? So, how can we ensure that these programs were built from the ground to the top and not the opposite?
Well, I think that I think that for the most part, you don't have to start at perfection. You know, you can start off with identifying a problem and making a policy, but also creating good feedback loops, so that there is effective, communication between stakeholders. I think that there's never a one-stop solution. So you have to keep evolving the process.
Yeah.
That is what I had seen, and when I was working with microfinance institutions, it's so there would be, young people, like young entrepreneurs who would set up these institutions so that they could then give out microloans to, their community where they're from. So it's very inspiring working with them, seeing how, a small loan of, in USD would maybe be like, maybe between 200 to 500 USD, but it would make such a huge difference to the whole village. So starting somewhere, starting small, and then creating good feedback loop mechanisms, I think is a good approach to solving these issues.
Because previously, before you arrived, we were talking about the instruments that are needed in order to bridge the gap between what authorities want and what they implement and what the communities need, right? So your example is the perfect case where which we can continue building, right, in order to come up with legitimate channels that may allow communication between the many stakeholders that need to be involved, so that we can continue increasing opportunities for entrepreneurs and especially for youth. Okay, we have 30 minutes passed already. We still have 15 minutes to continue with the discussion. I would like to take a few questions from the audience. I see one there, two. One by one? Okay, please. Can you say your name, background, and keep your question short, please?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Ambassador Shepherd Foyle. I am the Executive Director for US Africa Youth Leadership Summit. First of all, let us put our hands together for them. So, where I'm from, back then, young people need to graduate, there's already a job for them. And later, go to the extent that you need to graduate with first class degree and then come back to the space, and then there will be a job for you. And later it goes on to having a first class degree and also have a master's degree. Come back down, you have a job for you waiting for you. Later, it becomes that getting a degree out of the country, like you need to fly, come to Europe, Asia, America, get a degree, come back home, there will be a job for you. And then you extend to not only coming to Europe, you need to come to maybe Harvard, MIT, and then come back home, the competition become very, 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 very hard. So guess what? After the COVID, there was a lot of shock. Then we started seeing young people doing virtual reality TV shows. We have what we call the House of Stars. We have what we call the Housemates. These are reality TV shows. Young people find themselves engaging to themselves so that they can create different key things for themselves to extend and have what to take back home. And later, we see young, innovative young people doing what we call social media influencer, because the job and creativity landscape has been very, very limited. So what they're doing is started creating jobs for themselves. Let me tell you the truth. Government alone cannot provide jobs for all of us. I'm an advocate. In fact, every blessed day when I'm on TV, I used to blast on government, you understand? So as a peer pressure to pressure them. But the reality is, young people as well trying to understand that we need to be creative enough, doing one or two influencer key things, and then focus on individual branding. So most time when we're talking about entrepreneurship, when we're talking about all of these key things, individual branding will take us to a place where we never imagined that we would us to. So I want to thank you very much for taking this particular landscape, educating us, and leading us to the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would you like to answer this question before listening to the next?
What was the question?
The question is, how are we using the digital tools, right, in order to continue increasing opportunities for youth? We hadn't mentioned about how useful social media can be for showcasing our products, in order to learn as well, get inspiration from similar businesses selling products related to our market. And I think we need to push forward, like there must be a way in order to foster partnerships between Facebook, LinkedIn, all those platforms, and the government in order to continue increasing youth participation, right?
Well, I'll take this one since this is like in the consumer / media domain.
Yes.
Let's look at why influencers exist, right? Especially micro influencers. Why do they exist? What's the business model there? They exist because they provide a very straight look into a micro segmentation within a particular set of lifestyles, right? So investing in micro influencers are actually a lot more effective than spending $250,000 with a larger celebrity, because then you can identify exactly who those followers are, what do they like, how do they buy. That's the value a micro influencers creates. The content itself is rather free in a sense. You're attracting attention for platforms like Instagram and TikTok, and they profit from our attention. So in a way, it's, even though it is a job, but we're still working, right, for the larger corporation that our attentions are being capitalized by then. So I asked this question is, what is the model? How do we scale micro influencers, especially youth, when they're still taking information, understanding what's okay, what's not, and how do we consume, and so on and so forth? How do you have then an education system to help them actually look inside of how those algorithms work? If Facebook changes it tomorrow, there's going to be a whole globe of marketers scrambling after that, right? I know this because I was one of them, right? You try to figure out now, how does the algorithm work? Where is the transparency in that? Why do we allow those companies to drive our behaviors, specifically economically related behaviors, with just a switch of button?
Although I know many influencers need to invest their own savings money to start posting in social media and stuff. So if there were a program where the government supports these profiles for a short period of time in order to help them start and grow in the following months, then maybe they won't need to invest from their own, right? Because I wanted to bring up this program from Mexico where the youth can intern for a few months in any company that is part from the government secretary process. The Ministry of Economics is in charge about this. And the government provides a small scholarship for the young people who wants to gain experience. Maybe they want to entrepreneur in a similar topic after serving the company, or maybe they can stay there with a position on a part-time, full-time basis. Although we would like to see these types of programs using or considering the digital platforms and the innovative approaches to start a business, right? Like the case in an influencer. So I'm bringing that up because we can learn from the different formats that governments create in order to come up with something more innovative, or programs that actually fulfill our needs because they are coming from the ground to the top, as we were discussing previously.
Yeah, I think I want to add on to that
Yeah.
because just as you mentioned, actually algorithm has been always the big problem with all the influencer we are talking about. So we can see that some of the influencer are encouraged to do something risky and not exactly good for the society because of the algorithms in like encouragement to these kind of behavior to be risky to gain more traction. So now actually many governments are working on like trying to working on talk to these big social media platform, but uh, that those efforts may not always successful because if you are from a small government, you don't have that negotiation. You don't even have that negotiation happen because you don't have the bargaining power. So that's why we can see some regulation from the EU is coming up to regulate a social media platform more. But still, we have to um, have more governments coming together to form a stronger power to have this conversation with them. Or else, actually, it has been a big problem in many society, as I think, as our audience mentioned, because the young people are tend to be attracted by this seemingly good job, but maybe not. It's not all the case. But still, we need ways for young people to voice up for themselves. So yeah, so like what you said in Mexico's examples, they do need the tools to help themselves to be voicing up for them, like how to do like video content or like sound content, maybe podcast or YouTuber, but not it's not like you should be bounded to these social media. Is that you can use this talent to communicate and try to use it in a smart way, but not always manipulate by the social media platforms algorithms.
Also, we need to see how the different treaties. I know during these weeks they were discussing about the Global Digital Compact, right? Like how the new regulations in the international level can serve the needs from countries and from youth specifically. Zainab, we have 5 minutes. I'm glad that you are here. Allow me to introduce our last panelist. She is a climate policy advocate and communications expert, currently working as the Asia Pacific campaign manager for Equal Right, a global organization increasing economic justice and climate equity. In addition to her role at Equal Right, Zainab serves as a youth advisor for Ørsted, one of the world's leading renewable energy companies. Zainab, the last question goes for you. As a climate justice advocate, how can young leaders push for reforms that ensure marginalized voices, considering all the problems in many countries, inequalities, lack of access to human rights and to services, etc.? How can we push the voices from these groups to be heard in global decision-making spaces?
Thank you so much for the question, and hello everyone. I'm so sorry for the delay, but I am Zainabi, Asia Pacific Campaign Manager for Equal Right, and we've been working on mobilizing climate finance and sending it from the global north to the global south. And it really helps me to answer this question, basically empower people, empower the marginalized. Very simple answer, but very difficult to implement. So what we're trying to do with cap and share model as a policy recommendation for the upcoming COPs at Equal Right. So the cap and share is about capping the carbon, basically trying to pair up two countries, one from the developed, one from the developing, and trying to mobilize climate finance for energy transition and as climate reparations in the form of UBI, Universal Basic Income. So a lot of work goes into understanding how universal basic income can help the marginalized people and can help reducing the extreme poverty. For example, if we implement cap and share globally, as in each fossil fuel company is capped, each fossil fuel company is charged for $135 per ton of carbon dioxide emissions. That is something that has been recommended by IPCC. We will be able to actually mobilize $5 trillion of climate finance within a single year, and this is exactly amount of the finance we require by 2030. And a lot of our work goes into mobilizing climate finance and send it as UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. So if it goes right, and if we try to push in this policy more, we will be able to give $70 to each and every person in this world as universal basic income, as direct income. And considering right now, in extreme poverty, majority of the people who are in extreme poverty are earning less than $1.25. So you can see the difference. A lot of our work goes into how do we make sure that we directly reach the grassroots people, who directly reach the most affected people. For example, in 2023, almost 8 million people were directly affected by floods, by droughts, and other kinds of climate catastrophes. But still, it is not enough to convince the leaders, convince the developed countries to finance. And this is wherein we come into play. This is where our model comes into play, to make sure that we reach these direct communities and make sure that the funding reaches them.
And probably I know about many funding mechanisms at the international level that people can use. However, we lack the tools, capacities in order to actually be considered by those agencies, right? Considering your work with Yongo, we missed to mention that. How can we use the network? Yongo is the official youth constituency within the UNFCCC, focusing on climate change, to continue strengthening the profiles from youth so that they can access funding from the international level.
Yeah. So a lot of our work also goes into re-granting youth, grassroots youth activists, and we've been reading applications for almost a year now, and we have realized that there requires a lot of capacity building. There requires a lot of understanding of the options that people, of the options of the kind of activities and projects people can take up. So a lot of our work should go into making sure that people understand what the problem is and how the justice issue will actually be solved.
Coming back to your point.
Not just spending on advocacy, not just spending on youth groups, but again, what the youth group will actually do to the community is something that we need to work on.
I work on peace and security, and I want to find ways in which we can use the international financial architecture to reconcile, the differences, conflicts between actors, etc. But probably that's another conversation. Do we have time for one last minute question? You want to ask?
Hello, everyone. So, my name is Pavit. I am a part of a nonprofit organization called Recycle My Battery. Recycle My Battery is an organization that is dedicated to changing perceptions about proper battery disposal. We've placed over 865 battery bins to collect batteries from people, and we've educated over 3 million people about the cause, and we have 500 plus kids on our team.
Wow.
So right now, our organization has hit a roadblock where the battery bins that we get from our partner Call to Recycle have now, unfortunately, we need to pay for them. So I wanted to, I heard that all of you guys were talking about finance and bridging that gap. And I wanted to ask how you would be, if you would be able to guide me in how we can bridge the gap of the finances and see how we can balance the costs and everything out. Is there any way that you can guide me?
I still have a question. You're saying you're needing money for what particular? What, are you seeking money for the actual bins or the transportation? What specifics are you looking for in terms of tangible resources?
For the actual bins. So we need to pay for them now in order to place them.
And the bins are specifically made for corrosion, right?
The bins
No,
are
it could be
specifically made
from
for
any
the,
material.
the bins are specifically made for the batteries. So the batteries, if the batteries touch on the tops of them,
Yes.
there could be a possible fire.
Okay, so you need specific
We
bins for
need
the.
that specific bin in order to.
And where is your project based?
So we're based in Monroe, New Jersey, and our founder has our founder has brought the organization internationally. Though we have a lot of members from the U.S. and we have members in India and other countries around the world.
How old are you?
I'm 11 years
Oh
old.
wow.
So
Oh yeah, so I have a question. My name is Dewar. I wanted to find out whether your organization is the one that is building the bin for the battery, or you guys are subleasing it from another entity to be able to use it.
Yes, so we're sourcing our bins from a partner called Recycle, but we are the ones who get approval from public and private organizations to place the battery bins there and raise awareness.
Okay, so my last question to you will be, in order to,
Later, please.
Okay.
They have to respond. Please, they have to respond.
yeah, just maybe I can do this. So
Please.
yeah, just because nowadays people are talking about recycle a lot, especially for batteries, as there are like a scarcity in all the materials inside batteries. So
Lithium is
yeah, the lithium and also iron, things like that. But just there must be some incentive for people to pay more to get a constant amount of recyclable batteries, so that they can just take the material like on a constant basis. So just wondering if you have already got this profit stream, like a constant profit stream from recycling or not, because if you have that, you can space a certain amount to pay the things you mentioned.
No, so we're a non-profit organization, so we don't have any profit whatsoever from the battery recycling. We are just placing the bins and then collecting the batteries and selling them for recycling.
I'm partnering with many institutions in
Yes,
order to make that
we're
possible.
partnering
I think-
with different public and private corporations to be able to place battery bins there. So, for example, schools, universities, libraries, and just in general.
Coming
So-
back to,
We've
yes, please.
also placed a battery box in the UN office. So in our UN offices, we placed a battery box in my mom and dad's office. My mom and dad work in the UN, so we placed a battery box there too.
A great first step.
Yeah, I think it's very inspiring what you've built so far with your project. I think that since you're partnering with many universities and schools and also placing things there, a lot of universities have grant program in which you can apply as a startup or you can apply as a NGO and share your objectives. And if they think that if you essentially you can apply for the grant and I would say that since you're already placing, they already know you, like the schools would be aware of what you're doing. They can also directly witness and see how your operations are being conducted. I think that would build faith over time. And then I think you should try, I think the best place would be to create more engagement within the stakeholder system that you're already in. So I would say apply for grants from them because they can really see what you're doing. So they will have that trust and faith in knowing that if their money is going to be used for the, earmarked purpose.
Also using the institutions surrounding the project in order to improve the business model, right? Like nonprofits can depend from external funds. However, if they were able to develop a process where they find a way to get revenues based on the needs that they are fulfilling, in this case, environmental rights, climate change, then your project may be successful.
May I add one thing? How big is the box?
So the box is around this big. You would get it in height. This is the size of the box when you place it. For shipping, it's probably around this big.
Not that
but
big
when
then.
you get the box to be placed, it's not like a garbage can type of thing. It's a small cardboard box with the fireproof lining and everything inside. And it comes with the bags, so you can individually place a battery inside to prevent fires.
I would say you have a perfectly good piece of advertising vehicle right there, my friend. Make them bigger. Make them eye-catching. Because frankly, it is a lot more difficult to ask people to change their behavior when you're saying that it's saving you money versus it's making you money, right? So look into how people behave, look into who is looking at those boxes, make it digital, make it viral, pitch to media stations, build allies, spread your stories. People love to support this sort of initiatives. We all do. There are many, many different ways you can sponsor a box, like you're sponsoring a highway. Get creative. Find a different way of generating revenue. That would be my suggestion.
Those were great recommendations. And for closing, I would like to encourage all to continue this conversation, please, after the panel, and to explore how we can work together to advance equitable finance and sustainable development. Thank you all once again for being part of this important discussion, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.